Oh, what's up, YouTube? Shawn DaGamer here, and today we're going to be going over some of the pros and cons on WWE right now and why I haven't really been covering the product. It's because there's so many things wrong that could be fixed and little things that could be done so much better just to help boost ratings and watchership and just criticism in general. But I just made a little short list, and I could have made at least the cons list a lot longer. But there's just so many minor things that have been escalated to the point where it's causing major problems with the current product on the main roster, at least. That other people like Solid Monster, JD, Joe Cronin, Wrestling Soup, Wrestling Observer, all those people, it's like there's so many people reporting the negatives. I don't want to be that channel, but there's so many of them. So I tried to make a list of pros and cons, but I used a little small like quarter notebook just to write a couple of things that were on my mind, just to keep my thoughts in track. That there's so many, like I keep saying, there's so many things wrong that I could have made the cons list longer, but the pro list is so short. Just of little things I can think of each brand, including NXT. There's a lot of things right about NXT and little things wrong, but when it comes to the main roster, just so many misses that could have been corrected a long time ago, but with maybe it's Vince McMahon's creative direction and just little things that they're focusing on that they shouldn't be, like Jinder Mahal, the Bullet Club taking picture with some of their backstage producers, making them get fired. It's like if you took as much attention to detail on the things that don't matter, the product could be so much better, like I keep saying. But if I were to go through my list of pros, this is post Hell in a Cell. So this week. I'm recording this on October 13th, 2017, which is my late grandmother's birthday today. So, just a fitting day to talk about the pros and the cons of something that I actually take interest in and something that keeps my mind off everything else. But it's just frustrating when something as simple as pro wrestling, something that we all know is predetermined and outlined, maybe not to the T, but step by step outline to the point where if you look at segments like the Jinder Mahal promos pre Hell in a Cell, where he was just coming out looking at pictures and trying to make fun of Shinsuke, if people were to take more attention to details on those promos, if we have Jinder Mahal as champion, things should be so much better. But they don't. And it's like, we have all these Hollywood writers that have worked on certain movies and TV shows and all these things. But you would think you would hire people who have that type of qualifications and yet still know little things about the wrestling business, so they can incorporate those things they've learned in those big budget movies or high produced TV shows when they come to WWE and they see how simple trying to book somebody to look strong and somebody to look like a bad guy and all those little things, it will make more sense. But when we get this current product that we're living in right now, it doesn't make sense unless you're watching NXT solely. So, like I said before, let's go on to this pros list. Like I said, pros and cons. Let's go on to this pro list of a few things that I found right. And we're going to talk about NXT because NXT, pound for pound, being the hour-long product, is so much more simplified, so much more satisfying, so much more enjoyable than anything you get out of the out of the 5 hours you get on the main roster when it comes to televised TV. So things that I'm really looking forward to about WWE is mainly that they're bringing back the War Games match. Being that I've never seen one personally, live or in person, I'm really looking forward to this match. I can't go to Houston, of course. I don't have money for a plane ticket and tickets for the event and hotels and things like that at the moment. But watching them bring back something like War Games, and I know Triple H, William Regal, and the team down at NXT is going to do this right. So this might be a little small spoiler, so skip ahead a minute or two. You're going to have 3 teams, so 9 participants in this match. You're going to have Sanity, Eric Young, Killian Dane, and Alexander Wolf. You're going to have the Undisputed, which is, Cole O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. And then you're going to have the team of the Authors of Pain and Roderick Strong, which a lot of people don't understand, even at this point, why those 3 are teaming up. But when you think about it, when the Undisputed Era came in, their first targets were the tag team titles. Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. They were going after, or they went after the tag team match at the last NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, I believe. They went after Sanity and the Authors of Pain. So the Authors of Pain have been off TV for a while. You bring them back, and they're currently, as we saw of this week's part of the tapings, Roderick Strong, they keep bringing in, they keep trying to get into Roderick Strong head about joining the Undisputed Era. So Roderick Strong being at this point a quote-unquote good guy, and the fact that the Authors of Pain have previously been attacked by the Undisputed, that gives them a common goal. So putting those 3 together in the War Games match makes sense. Little things like that, little attention to details like that is what keeps NXT on top. So that being probably the main event for that show makes sense. And then you have other little things like the build up between Aleister Black and the Velveteen Dream. Now, a lot of people have the same opinion that I have on this, that when Patrick Clark first dawned this Velveteen Dream personality, we didn't know what to think of it. Like, you could say the obvious, como se dice, rude remarks and things like that. This character is quote unquote homoerotic, homosexual, gay, if you want to be simple with it, and people don't really want to see this. But as it has developed, this is a very interesting storyline, because you have the flamboyancy of somebody like Patrick Clark going up against the straight edge. When I say straight edge, I mean like basic, I just want to come here and wrestle mentality of Aleister Black, who he doesn't say anything. He spoke a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was it was okay. He sounds like a regular Joe. You know what I'm saying? Like, vocally, not in his promo, but vocally, he just sounds like a regular person. He didn't put any inflection in his voice. They didn't give him some type of Undertaker-esque microphone where it can, a voice change or anything like that. It was just regular old Aleister Black. Tony Ian came out there, cut a little decent promo, and then the Velveteen Dream comes out of nowhere, and things just got weird and very interesting at the same time. And then they interjected little things like the debut of Lio Rush in here, who was formerly the tag team partner of Patrick Clark. Of course, they're not probably going to talk about that a lot on NXT TV, if they talk about it at all. But just little attention to details like that, having Lio Rush come out to face Aleister Black, which is a match I still want to see. I still want to see Lio Rush versus Aleister Black. I was pissed off when Patrick Clark came out and interrupted that match. I was like, there's one match I've been looking forward to all week. It was this one here. and then Velveteen Dream gonna come out and interrupt it. But it was worth it because of the payoff and what we're still getting. We got a decent little showing of Lio Rush this week. A couple of seconds of what he can do and what he's capable of doing when presented with the time and the opportunity in the near future. But this segment between Patrick Clark and Aleister Black is so simple, but yet so effective. And it's little things like that I wish would carry over to the main roster. But what are some pros for NXT, the women division? We just had the Mae Young Classic, which I have not covered in detail, and even though it's like probably a month or so late, month and a half late, I still want to at least talk about the ramifications that the Mae Young Classic and the participants are going to have on the subsequent rosters to come in the future, the SmackDown, Raw, and NXT division. Because even if you take half of that roster, 32 women, take 16 of those women, spread them out 4 apiece. Well, no, that's not right now. 6 apiece. No, wait, because that's 18 at that point. So 4, 8, 12. You carry the 2 and then you divide the 3. Anyway, you take a certain amount of these women and you spread them across each roster, then you can refill the women's division. You had a lot of great known competitors in that tournament, like what's her name? Gosh, I was doing so well so far. Now I can't remember names. Let's go with Sarah Logan, Candice LeRae, Serena Deebs, Mia Yim. Why can't I remember what's her Shayna Baszler? People like that. Who else was in there? Mercedes Martinez, Nicole Savoy. You had a lot of Piper Nivens. Did I say Dakota Kai? At least 10 to 12 women that you can automatically disperse throughout each division just to give a little boost to what they can do when it comes to each division's storyline and placement and things like that. And then you have the ones you can keep down in NXT developmental, where you can help develop them a little bit more, like Jazzy Gabbard, even though she's a fan favorite. Who else? Jazzy. We saw What's Her Face this week being the pawn for the Undisputed Era. Tiana something, I can't remember, the girl who does the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or some type of martial arts, and she's like world famous for that. And then you have people, what's her name from, I'm sorry I'm doing it like this, from American Ninja Warrior, what's her name? But the girl, she's been on like the past 3 seasons of American Ninja Warrior, and she has been like the pioneer for the women for that show, even though it's not like a wrestling show, but you get what I'm saying. Where somewhere where the men have been dominant, and she came in. What is her name? I can't remember it right now. I don't have nothing close near me where I can just I just use the laptop. But as I keep talking, WWE signs American Ninja. There we go. American Ninja. Where is her name? I'm gonna be so mad when I find out. Casey Castanzaro. They signed a couple of new women where they can just keep them developmental, help them out a little bit more, and replenish the women's division. So that is a great thing, along with the women that you already have there, that I don't want to say were stifled, but weren't on the level of Asuka, like Amber Moon. What's her face from Sanity, Nikki Cross, the iconic duo in Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. Who else is down there? And you have people like, how could I forget Bianca Belair, who is, in my opinion, one of the top prospects from that women's division tournament. So the women's division altogether, at least starting from the roots, being the Mae Young Classic, going into NXT and into the future, is looking quite promising. So I think that's enough time on the women's division. And I talked about the Aleister Black stuff. And just another thing in general is the the mid card / undercard, or the whole, anybody that's not in the main event scene that could be down in NXT. When we talking about people like, Aleister Black, you have Roderick Strong. Who else do you have down there? Johnny Gargano. We're going to see, it's not even a spoiler at this point, it's just like common knowledge that we're going to see Andrade Cien Almas with Dia Trinidad, because I still refuse to call her Selena Vega at this point, because I still know her as Dia Trinidad. They're going to be challenging Drew McIntyre for the world title at War Games. Who else is down there? You have people like, even your undercard or / jobbers, if you want to call them that, like Oni Lorcan, what's his name, Danny Burch. Then you have the more up and comers like the Street Profits. Oh, that's a whole nother thing right there, the tag team division. But the undercard is looking so good at NXT. Like I said, you just brought in Leo Rush. What are you going to do with all these people if you're not going to give them an NXT title? You need to bring in a mid-card title for those people. And that's how good the brand is at this point, where you can add another 30 minutes to NXT and put another title on there, and it would not hurt the product. It would just give more credibility to these people that are going to be called up eventually, that probably won't win the NXT Heavyweight Championship. Like, could you imagine if people like Tyler Breeze or Antonio Cesaro, or I'm blank, he's still down there, or no, he's not. What's his name? Tyler Breeze, Cesaro. Who's the other one? Tyler Breeze, Cesaro. Whatever. Just people like that who could have won a mid-card title. Ty Dillinger. Ty Dillinger. If they would have won a mid-card title once or twice down in NXT before they came up, that would have given them a little extra boost on the main roster. But at this point, if they decide to introduce a mid-card title for NXT in the near future, hopefully before summer 2018, it'll be a great thing for NXT. And lastly, like I just kind of hinted by mentioning the Street Profits, the tag team division is kind of the best tag team division on WWE product right now, because you have your main teams as Insanity, Authors of Pain. Then you have people like the Street Profits, Sabertelli and Riddick Moss, Heavy Machinery, the Ely brothers. Even if you want to put Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch into a tag team, there's just so many different options. The Undisputed Era, there's so many different options down there for tag team rivalries and sub tag team rivalries to just play around with. And I just think that's a great thing down for NXT. And those are a lot of my main pros for NXT by itself. And that was a lot of talking. My throat hurts a little bit. But let's move on to Monday Night Raw. And this is going to be nowhere as long as NXT, because there are not many pros when it comes to the main card. The main card is suffering so much because of if I could just get into this real quick before I go into the pros and cons. This is probably going to lead into everything else, but everything on the main roster, when I say everything, absolutely everything, is being stifled for the fact that Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, and everybody else in charge directly under Vince McMahon has to push this Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar match at WrestleMania. And you're probably wondering why does that hurt SmackDown? Put it like this. even with the Shield reuniting right now, is a bandage on everything that the WWE could do in the future. It's like, put it like this, it's like having a terminal disease, having the medication readily available to you, but you refuse to take it. So let's consider, I don't want to say anything like cancer, things like that, because all the people out there, I don't want to get copyright strike just for trying to make a point about something else using a more serious topic. So let's just say you had a terminal illness, being Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And you might think, okay, people are still on the side of Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar, but people, while he's on his own, despise Roman Reigns. And there are so many remedies that could fix that, but would take the spotlight off your build towards Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania next year in New Orleans. So things that could overshadow that are being either put on the back burner or not being done correctly, like Bray Wyatt, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, and the list just goes on of things that should be in the forefront of the WWE, but the WWE refuses to do that because of their agenda in pushing Roman Reigns, even though at this point it is kind of a failed experiment. So when we go into the pros, it's everything but. Was only like 3 things that I got, and 2 of those have question marks next to it. So first major thing about Raw that is a pro is Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman, even going on this time last year, he was just getting the hype. Braun Strowman was like the odd man out of the Wyatt family, because you had Harper, Rowan, and Luke, and those were the 3 that we had come to know as the Wyatt family. And then you want to go ahead and put Braun Strowman in there. It was like, okay, what is this? We don't want it. Take it back, get our refund, get our money back, and let's get something else. But as of to this point, Braun Strowman is the most over thing on Monday Night Raw, other than maybe a Samoa Joe. Who else is on there? Kurt Angle and Matt Hardy, which is another thing that has been stifled for numerous other reasons. But the main reason I still believe is that even if we were to get a broken, awoken, cracked Matt Hardy, it will be way more interesting than anything that Roman Reigns is doing, that they don't want to do it. And this goes back to the whole Daniel Bryan effect, of where Daniel Bryan was cleared by several doctors outside of WWE to say, oh yeah, even though he has this and that, as long as you keep him on a light schedule or things like that, Daniel Bryan can still compete. And to this day, Daniel Bryan is the most over person on that roster, whether it's Raw or SmackDown. So they don't want, and that's why Daniel Bryan, I don't care what anybody says, anybody with a brain knows, once Daniel Bryan's contract expires, which I believe is sometime before summer of next year, we will see him wrestling again before 2019, whether it's with WWE or a different promotion. So that's one thing. But this whole Roman Reigns thing is completely stifling everything. Another pro with a question mark next to it is Asuka. Asuka, actually, in less than 8 days, will be making her debut at WWE TLC against Emma, which is crazy to me, because it's something that I said it should happen, and I said it in my preview and predictions video for Hell in a Cell, that I said it a while ago. I don't know if I ever uploaded it though. But the best opponent for Asuka on Raw would be Emma, because it will be like a mirror image of her first, I believe that was her first takeover match, or first or second takeover match with Emma, and you can have them go out there for no less than 15 minutes to put Asuka over, because I believe Emma, even with Sasha Banks and Bayley and Mickie James and Alexa Bliss on that roster, Emma is the best person to help Asuka become more popular and get more attention on her, because of the match quality that Emma and Asuka could have based on their London match. If you have not seen their London match, it's something that I keep telling you guys to go back and watch, so go watch it. And then, like I just mentioned, Broken Matt Hardy, Awoken Matt Hardy, those are some other things that are kind of being stifled, not just because of the WWE, but also the legal situations and things like that. But how hard is it to actually take a concept like Broken Matt Hardy, who's mentally not all the way there, and have them create a character similar to the Broken Matt gimmick? It's not hard at all. They just don't want to do it, because even with Jeff Hardy being injured, and this is the perfect time to do it, it would overshadow everything going on with the Shield, Roman Reigns, etc., etc., etc. So that's why they're not doing it. So those are the only positives that I can see going on in the Raw brand. So if we move on to SmackDown, I only got two things. Only got two things for pros on SmackDown, and that's a tag team title division where you have the Usos, the New Day, Breezango, the Bludgeon Brothers now, the Hype Bros, the Fashion Police. It's a handful of tag teams on there that I want to say going to start highlighting, but should start highlighting in the near future. But the tag team division, the New Day and the Usos, they're like the best thing on that brand. They're like the best thing in the company, period, right now when it comes to the main roster. So that's one thing. And the other thing I have is the possibility for the mid-card title to actually mean something, especially when you have if AJ Styles is going to still be down there in the near future for the next, maybe to the end of the year. You have him down there, Rusev, Ty Dillinger, Baron Corbin, Bobby Roode, Dolph Ziggler, all these people who can challenge for the mid-card title until this whole WWE title gets situated. And that's pretty much it. That's literally pretty much it for the positives when it comes to WWE SmackDown. Now let's go on to the cons. The cons, everything that I pretty much mentioned already. So let's go to NXT. They need a mid-card title. NXT needs a mid-card title, and that's pretty much the only thing that I can think about wrong with NXT. And maybe make it an hour and a half show. You don't have to make it 2 hours. You don't even have to make it an hour and a half show. Just give them extra runtime on the network, because it's the network. You can give things extra runtime. So just add a mid-card title down there. You can call it the Dream title. You can call it the TV title. You can call it the Internet title. Just add another belt down there, and that'll solve all the problems with NXT. Them having an extra belt for the people who aren't going to be immediately in the main event scene to fight over. What else are the cons on this stuff? Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. I mentioned that already. Is that Roman Reigns, everything that he does, or everything that they want to happen, is just going to stifle and hinder and block anything good that can happen, because they don't want it to overshadow what Vince McMahon has planned for WrestleMania. And I honestly strongly believe this is Vince McMahon's last gasp. This is his last thing that he actually wants to happen before a transition of power happens, whether it be him giving the company to Triple H, Stephanie, Shane, outside source that people can trust, or things like that. I feel like this is his end game before he steps down. It's having Roman Reigns actually beat Brock Lesnar, and after that, it should be fair game. And that's just wishful thinking. The mid-card titles on both brands, I put the IC title on here just because you have the Miz as mid-card champion, but I don't think, as much as I love the Miz, and I've been a Miz fan ever since he's debuted on the roster 10-12 years ago, he's not the right person to have at the top right now. You need somebody like a broken Matt Hardy, a Jeff Hardy before he got injured, a Finn Balor, somebody like that, a Seth Rollins even, who can go in and main event every Raw in the absence of a Brock Lesnar, as long as he's Intercontinental, or as long as Brock Lesnar is Universal Champion. So they need to go in and definitely pinpoint what's wrong with Raw, which I just mentioned, which is the whole Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns storyline, and figure out a way to stop the bleeding right now, and como se dice, have a championship on top that people can care about, and a champion that people can care about on the main roster. And that's on both brands. So you have The Miz and Baron Corbin as your mid-card champions right now, and Jinder Mahal, which is actually the next point. This is actually the next point. The Jinder Mahal experiment was supposed to be fun. The Jinder Mahal experiment was supposed to be fun for no more than 60 days. I gave Jinder Mahal 2 months to be WWE champion. It is going on 120 something days that this guy has had this title, and that is math, 70 something days too long, and the ratings are showing this. SmackDown at the beginning of the year and the end of last year was on fire. You had AJ Styles as champion. You had, I believe, Kevin Owens as U.S. champion. You had, or Intercontinental champion, one or the other. No, you had The Miz as Intercontinental champion, just cutting these vicious and scathing promos on people like Dolph Ziggler and Daniel Bryan. You had the tag team division, which was really good. You had the women's division, which was still fairly new and people were interested in, and all these things. And now you go from the end of the year last year and damn near end of the year this year, and you've just completely flipped reverse and annihilated everything that was right with everything that was wrong with SmackDown Live. You have Jinder Mahal, who is still technically a glorified jobber as your WWE champion, beating people like Shinsuke Nakamura, Randy Orton, which the whole point of this whole experiment being fun was not having Randy Orton as WWE champion anymore. You even at one point had Bray Wyatt, who people have been begging and pleading and hoping would do something relevant over the past 2 or 3 years, and not just lose and lose and lose time after time after time, finally building up a legitimate and relevant strain of victories and wins and decent storylines, and finally becoming WWE champion, pinning your former champion AJ Styles and the new 16-time world champion John Cena, who just a few weeks beforehand tied Ric Flair's WWE title win record. So you would think with things like that going on, you would keep Bray Wyatt as champion. But like I said, even Jinder Mahal is a small project for Vince McMahon. And it's just, I knew this was going to happen. WrestleMania weekend, we heard, or weeks leading up, if not months, leading up to WrestleMania this year, we heard that Vince McMahon was taking more interest in SmackDown Live storylines. And once I heard that, I was like, oh, yep, all hell's about to break loose. Everything that we loved about SmackDown Live is about to be dramatically different. And I don't know if I reported on it or covered it in detail, but this is what I was afraid of. Now, when we look back at it, from WrestleMania till now, what has been the decline of SmackDown was them taking the title off of Bray Wyatt and putting it on Randy Orton at WrestleMania. That was like a what the hell moment right there. And then you had Randy Orton, who was, for lack of better terms, boring as champion. People were just tired of Randy Orton with the championship. So you do something quick and innovative and put somebody who could be a nice little transitional champion for 30 to 60 days in Jinder Mahal. But now you want to do this whole full-on heel title run with him, and he's only had 2 opponents. Let's keep that in mind. He's only had 2 opponents, and that's been Randy Orton and Shinsuke Nakamura since WrestleMania. WrestleMania was in November, so in that time frame, it's been 6 months, 5 to 6 months since all that has happened, and yet you still want to push Jinder Mahal, even though ratings and the demographic that you're trying to capture and get more invested in WWE to get more attention on your product is denying the person that you thought was going to be the catalyst of making more intriguing program to SmackDown Live has been your detriment and your downfall. So why is Jinder Mahal still WWE champion? Plain and simple, because that's what Vince McMahon wants. Whew. Everything I just pretty much said about Jinder Mahal leads into my next bullet point with Brock Lesnar. But Brock Lesnar is a simpler case. Brock Lesnar is a bona fide attraction. So if you don't want, like I said earlier, if you don't want to have or can't have Brock Lesnar on TV every week, you need to increase the value of your Intercontinental Championship on there and make that be your main title until Brock Lesnar is ready to compete, whether it's once every few months or whatever. But your IC championship, as long as Brock Lesnar is champion, needs to be your main focus. Whew. Raw and SmackDown's undercard is abysmal right now. I'm getting tired, so I'm about to end this off quickly. I just want to quickly hint at some other points that I had. The undercard on Raw and SmackDown, and mainly Raw, is abysmal right now. Because who do you have? You have nobody, and they're trying to do the same thing that they're doing with Jinder Mahal and Brock Lesnar with Jason Jordan, which they killed Jason Jordan the moment they decided to do this stupid storyline saying that he's Kurt Angle's son. And it's like, why? You could have made him Kurt Angle's nephew or distant relative or something like that. But his son does not make sense if you're not going with Chad Gable. I'm going to leave it at that. The women's division across both brands right now, I won't even say they're bad. They're just, it's like they don't know what to do with the women. It's like they honestly don't know what to do with the women. You have Natalya as SmackDown champion and Alexa Bliss, who I keep wanting to forget is champion, because the last thing I remember before she got it back, Sasha Banks was champion, but Sasha Banks doesn't keep the title that long. But you don't see that much of Alexa Bliss in a prominent spot on the card to make you think that she's champion. When you see Alexa Bliss, she's like in some offshoot segment or some type of quote-unquote filler segment on the brand. You don't see her in a main event spot, which brings me to the biggest con of all, which I completely forgot about, is 205 Live as a whole. and I've mentioned this before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record when I say this, even though everything I probably just said to most people sounds like a broken record, because this is what a lot of people are repeating and repeating and repeating. And it's another reason why I haven't done a lot of wrestling related videos lately, is because everybody's saying the same thing. There's no innovation. And then when you have the one division that can give you the innovation that we are so desperately needing on the main roster, you treat them like complete and utter crap, and that is 205 Live. Like I just mentioned, you had Neville, who is reportedly pissed off enough to either have walked out of Raw or has walked out of Raw and left the WWE, which I don't think is true. But when you have somebody with the caliber of the talent, or people of the caliber of talent that you have on that roster, Cedric Alexander, Neville, Tony Nese, TJP, the Brian Kendricks, Rich Swann, Noam Dar, and all these other people, you have the gall and the audacity and the selfless carelessness in your system, in your body, in your creative writing team to put Enzo Amore as the face of a brand that is supposed to be exclusively about the talent in which these performers possess, and Enzo can't hold a candle to the least likely individual on that brand, or the least, I don't want to say least talented person, but when you have somebody like Enzo and you stick him into 205 Live with all these talented people who have traveled the world, honed their craft and all these things, and you put Enzo Amore as your champion of the purple belted brand, it's really it's bothersome, because I'm looking for a reason to watch 205 Live, because you have these amazing talents, but you don't showcase them well enough on Raw to make me want to tune into the network and watch them for a whole nother hour on the network, putting, adding an extra hour to my wrestling content that I already take in so much of during the week as is. We have Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Raw, SmackDown, NXT. Where does 205 Live fit in, things that I need to watch when it comes to wrestling? 205 Live isn't there, and Enzo Amore or Kalisto is not going to get me there. With the talent that you have now, if you start building interesting storylines up on Raw that will carry over to 205 Live, that'll be different. Like if you had a Cedric Alexander challenging a Neville, saying like, I haven't got my shot yet, yada yada, you've beaten everybody but me, or Tony Nese or somebody like that, make TJP more relevant and things like that, then you could have an interesting brand now, make me want to tune in. But at this point, I don't. I just literally don't. I don't care about 205 Live. And when you look at the quality that the Cruiserweights had in their tournament last year compared to what is going on now, there is a significant drop off. What happened? What happened to Dakota Ibushi versus who did Kota Ibushi versus Cedric Alexander matches? What happened to the Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa matches? What happened to the TJP versus Grand Metalik matches? What happened to the Zack Sabre Jr. storylines? What happened to all that stuff? And where did the excitement go? What happened between the transition to the network to the main roster? What was lost in translation there? And I'm just glad that there's already women's divisions in place. That way it doesn't happen to the same thing with the women of the Mae Young Classic. Like, could you imagine? What if we still had that Divas title that was only retired maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, what if we were still in the same place with the women's division that we were, and then we had this Mae Young Classic bringing them up to the main roster with no NXT women's division, with no Asuka, with no Bayley, with no Sasha Banks, with no Charlottes, with no Paiges, help building up what women's wrestling is supposed to be on the main roster down at NXT. What would have happened? What would have happened to a Ember Moon, or an Asuka, or a Nia Jax, or a Bayley if there wasn't any NXT? Do you think that we would have the quality of women's wrestling that we would have now? And I would stand on my grave, dead as a zombie corpse, and tell you people that the WWE did not start the women's revolution. They can talk about Emma starting this and all this stuff as much as they want. No, it was a little defunct-ish company called TNA Wrestling. You remember those guys? You remember? I gotta end this because my girl is getting calls and she's trying to block the calls. So let me end this in the next couple of minutes. We had people like Gail Kim, Angelina Love, Velvet Sky, Awesome Kong, Madison Rain, and the list goes on of the women down at TNA when there was a women's division called the Divas division down in WWE that they didn't give a crap about. And it took those women for people in the back at WWE to say, people actually enjoy women's wrestling, to start the NXT women's division, to bring in people like Bayley, Sasha, Peyton Royce, and all these people, and the list goes on. And could you just imagine if the Mae Young Classic has to suffer the same consequences that the Cruiserweights did now if there wasn't a quote-unquote women's division? I shudder to think. But like I said, I need to end this off now. I've probably been talking for entirely too long, and I know this because my throat is sore. So everything linked in the description down below. If you have any comments, concerns, rebuttals, or things like that about anything that I've talked about in this video, please leave it in the comment section down below. If you have more pros or more cons and things like that I should discuss in another video, please leave that in the comment section down below as well. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch, always linked in the comment section as well. Leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new here, share the video with your friends so they can get in on the comments and discussion as well. And also, if you are new here, please ring that bell to be notified whenever a new video is live in your sub box. But with all that being said, I am Shawn DaGamer, and I need something to drink badly, and I am out of here.